Most people believe they're smart until life proves them wrong. It happens quietly. You make a choice you're sure is right, and it fails. You give advice that sounds wise, and it hurts someone you care about. In that moment, something inside you cracks. The mirror of certainty breaks. And through that tiny crack, truth begins to shine. We live in a world that rewards confidence. Everyone wants to sound intelligent, look successful, and appear in control. But here's the hidden danger. When you start believing you already know enough, you stop truly learning, you stop listening, you stop growing. That's when the mind builds an invisible prison, made of pride and false certainty. It feels strong, but it keeps you small. Real intelligence doesn't shout, "I know." It whispers, "I'm learning." True wisdom doesn't come from being right. It comes from being curious. Yet most of us are too afraid to admit that we don't know. We think humility makes us weak, but in truth, it's the foundation of strength. Every mistake, every question, every doubt, they're not signs of failure. They're signs that your mind is alive. Welcome to Read and Learn English, a channel where every story is more than a lesson in language. It's a lesson in life. Here, we don't just study English words, we explore English wisdom. Each video takes you on a journey, from ignorance to insight, from confusion to clarity, from pride to peace. Because when you learn through stories, the language becomes part of your heart, not just your memory. So, if you've ever felt stuck, in your thinking, in your learning, or even in your life, this story is for you. It's not here to make you feel small. It's here to remind you how powerful you become when you stay open. When you stop pretending to be the smartest person in the room and start becoming the most teachable. Take a deep breath. Let go of what you think you know. Because sometimes the wisest thing you can say is, "I don't know yet." And from that one honest sentence, a whole new world begins to open. The hidden trap of the modern mind. We live in an age of answers. Ask a question, and within seconds, a glowing screen gives you one. Search engines whisper solutions, videos explain everything, and social media tells you what to think before you even have time to wonder. It feels powerful, almost magical. But that feeling hides a quiet danger. We are drowning in information and starving for wisdom. Every scroll, every click, every post rewards the brain with tiny sparks of satisfaction. We start to believe that knowing about something is the same as truly understanding it. We watch motivational clips, read short quotes, and nod like sages, but our actions remain unchanged. The truth is, knowledge that never touches the heart becomes just noise. It's like collecting seashells while forgetting the ocean that created them. The modern mind confuses familiarity with mastery. You've seen a concept, heard a word, recognized a face, so your brain says, "I know this." But knowing is not understanding. Understanding requires effort, silence, and reflection. Things our fast world rarely allows. In chasing more information, we've forgotten how to think. We are rich in data, but poor in depth. Social media is the greatest stage of false wisdom. Everyone has an opinion, and opinions feel like intelligence. We share, debate, argue, and defend, not to learn but to win. The louder the voice, the smarter it seems. Yet the wisest people in history often spoke less, listened more, and doubted themselves deeply. Today, silence feels uncomfortable, and not having an opinion feels weak. But in that silence lies something precious, space for truth to breathe. We've become masters of shortcuts. We want quick learning, fast progress, instant fluency. But wisdom doesn't grow in speed. It grows in slowness. Imagine planting a seed and demanding it bloom in a day. That's how we treat learning now. Impatient, distracted, always moving to the next thing. But the mind needs stillness to transform knowledge into understanding, just as a seed needs time and soil to become a tree. The internet gives us power without preparation. We can access more information than ancient scholars could dream of, yet our minds are restless, shallow, and tired. We know everything and understand nothing. And the worst part? We don't even notice. The illusion of intelligence has become normal. We confuse scrolling for studying, reacting for reasoning, and confidence for clarity. Ask yourself, when was the last time you truly learned something, not memorized it, not repeated it, but felt it change you? Most of us don't remember because we rarely let wisdom sink in. The moment discomfort appears, we run to the next distraction. But discomfort is where growth begins. The mind becomes strong not by comfort, but by questioning itself. Imagine this. A student studies philosophy online, quoting great thinkers with ease. They sound intelligent. Their words impress others. But when life challenges them, when a friend betrays them or a dream fails, their wisdom disappears. Why? Because they memorized thoughts without living them. Real understanding is not what you can repeat, but what you can apply. We have built a world where information moves faster than reflection. Everyone wants to be seen as smart, but few want to do the quiet work of becoming wise. This is the hidden trap of the modern mind, the comfort of appearing intelligent while avoiding the pain of true learning. But there is hope, because once you see the trap, you can step out of it. You can begin to use information as a tool, not an identity. You can slow down, ask deeper questions, and seek meaning instead of approval. The journey toward wisdom begins when you stop pretending to already have it. But it wasn't always this way. Once, wisdom meant something deeper than facts. The story of the young scholar. There once was a young scholar who believed he understood the secrets of wisdom. He had read hundreds of books, memorized great quotes, and spoke with the confidence of someone twice his age. People admired his clever words, and he loved the feeling of being admired. One day, he heard of an old teacher who lived on a quiet mountain, known for his deep understanding of life. "I will visit him," the young scholar said, "and test his knowledge." After a long journey, the scholar arrived at the teacher's small wooden house. The teacher welcomed him with a gentle smile and invited him to sit. His eyes were calm, like still water. The young man began to speak proudly about all the things he had learned: philosophy, psychology, religion, science. He listed the names of great thinkers, explained theories, and used difficult words to show how much he knew. The teacher listened silently. When the scholar finally paused, the old man said softly, "Would you like some tea?" The scholar nodded, pleased by the offer. The teacher brought out a simple teapot and 2 small cups. Slowly, he began to pour. The scholar watched the golden liquid rise, reach the brim, and then overflow. Hot tea spilled onto the table, dripping onto the floor. Shocked, the young man shouted, "Stop! The cup is full. Can't you see?" The teacher smiled again and set down the pot. "Yes," he said calmly. And you, my young friend, are like this cup, so full of your own ideas that nothing more can fit inside. How can you learn when your mind is already overflowing? The room grew quiet. The only sound was the soft hiss of tea cooling on the table. The young scholar looked down, his pride melting away like ice under the sun. For the first time, he saw himself clearly, not as a master of knowledge, but as a prisoner of it. The teacher poured him a new cup, this time stopping halfway. "Empty your mind," he said. "Be curious, not certain. Knowledge is useful, but wisdom needs space. A full cup can hold no more." The scholar lifted the warm cup to his lips. The tea tasted simple, yet richer than anything he had ever known. In that moment, he understood what no book had ever taught him, that learning is not adding more, but letting go. He spent many days with the teacher after that, but they did not speak much. They walked in silence, watched the sun rise, and listened to the sound of the wind through the trees. The young man began to notice small things, the rhythm of his breath, the patience of the earth, the kindness in quiet moments. He realized that wisdom was not hidden in complicated words, but in simple awareness. When the time came to leave, the teacher bowed slightly and said, "Remember, every time you think you know, pour a little out." The scholar returned to the world changed. His voice grew softer, his eyes gentler. When people praised his intelligence, he smiled, but said little. He began to ask more questions, not to prove others wrong, but to understand them better. His knowledge had not disappeared. It had deepened. It no longer sat like a heavy stone in his mind, but flowed like water. And though many still called him a scholar, he no longer saw himself as one. He saw himself as a student of life, of people, of truth, because he had finally learned the most important lesson of all. The smartest person in the room is not the one who speaks the most, but the one who listens. This story may sound ancient, but its meaning is modern. Our minds are too full of certainty. The psychology of overconfidence. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to feel certain, even when you're wrong? That quiet, confident voice inside your head that says, "I already know this," or "I'm different, I understand." It feels safe, powerful, even comforting. But psychology tells us something surprising. The less we know, the more certain we often feel. There's a name for this: the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a simple idea with a deep truth. People who know little about something often overestimate how much they understand, while those who know more tend to doubt themselves. The reason is clear. When you don't know the full picture, it's easy to believe you've seen it all. But once you start learning deeply, you begin to realize how vast the unknown truly is. Real intelligence grows quieter, not louder. Think of a mountain. From the bottom, it looks small. You can see the top and believe the climb will be easy. But as you start walking, the path reveals turns, shadows, and endless steps. You suddenly understand how far you still have to go. Knowledge works the same way. The higher you climb, the humbler you become. Our brains love shortcuts. They're built to save energy, so they make quick judgments. When you get a few facts, your mind connects them into a story, and that story feels true. You might think, "I've read one article, I get it." But you don't see the gaps, the parts your brain quietly fills in to protect your sense of control. That's not wisdom, that's a comforting illusion. Social media makes this illusion stronger. You see short videos, catchy headlines, confident voices, everyone sounds sure of themselves. And the more confidence someone shows, the more we believe them. But confidence and competence are not the same. Sometimes, the loudest people are the least aware of their own ignorance. True experts speak with care, not arrogance. They say, "It depends," or "I could be wrong," because they've seen complexity where others see simplicity. Overconfidence is not just a mistake, it's a defense. It protects us from feeling small, from admitting confusion, from facing the truth that we might be wrong. But in protecting the ego, it closes the door to growth. Imagine a cup that's already full. Nothing new can be poured in. That's what overconfidence does to the mind. But there's beauty in awareness. The moment you realize how easily your brain can deceive you, humility is born. And humility doesn't mean weakness. It means clarity. It means you're no longer trapped by the illusion of certainty. You can say, "I don't know yet," and feel free instead of ashamed. Psychologists say that awareness is the first step to wisdom. When you start noticing your own mental patterns, the quick judgments, the hidden pride, the need to be right, you begin to see the mind's tricks for what they are: habits, not truths. You learn to pause before reacting, to question before assuming, and to listen before speaking. That small pause is where intelligence begins. So the next time you feel completely sure of yourself, stop for a moment. Ask, "Could I be missing something?" That single question can change your life. It turns the mind from a closed room into an open window. Through that window, new light can enter. Light that reveals what was always there but unseen. Once you know the mind's illusion, the next step is learning how to break it. Facing the mirror. Most people look in the mirror and see only what they want to see, a reflection carefully shaped by habits, memories, and pride. But beneath that surface lies another image, hidden like a shadow behind the light. It is the truth of who we are when no one is watching. To face that reflection takes courage, because the mirror never lies. The mirror of self-awareness is not made of glass. It's made of silence, reflection, and honesty. When life slows down, when you put your phone away, turn off the noise, and simply sit with your thoughts, the mirror appears. At first, the image is foggy. You see outlines of your fears, your insecurities, your desires. They move like shapes behind mist. The more still you become, the clearer they grow. And that's when the truth starts to hurt, but also to heal. Every human being has blind spots. We all carry parts of ourselves we cannot see, patterns that repeat, wounds that whisper, mistakes we excuse. These are the shadows of the mind. They follow us quietly until one day they step into the light, maybe through a failure, maybe through a relationship, maybe through loneliness. Life has a way of holding up a mirror when we least expect it. When you face the mirror, you begin to realize how much of your smartness was really protection, armor built to hide uncertainty. You start to notice how often you defend your ideas instead of exploring them, how you interrupt to sound clever instead of listening to understand. The fog begins to lift, and what you see is not shameful, it's human. The moment you stop pretending to be perfect is the moment you start becoming real. Self-awareness isn't about judging yourself, it's about seeing yourself. The difference is love. Judgment says, "I'm broken." Awareness says, "I'm learning." One closes the heart, the other opens it. That openness lets empathy grow, for yourself and for others. When you understand your own shadows, you stop fighting everyone else's. You realize people act from their own fog, their own pain, their own fear, and suddenly, compassion becomes easier than anger. Think of a foggy morning. When you drive too fast, the fog feels thick and dangerous. But when you slow down, shapes appear, trees, roads, even sunlight breaking through. The same is true for the mind. When we rush through thoughts, we crash into confusion. But when we slow down, when we pause, breathe, and look, the fog clears and wisdom appears quietly, like dawn. Facing the mirror is not a one-time act. It's a daily practice, a gentle returning. Each day, ask yourself, what am I not seeing clearly? Some days, the reflection will show peace. Other days, it will reveal pain. Both are teachers. The mirror doesn't punish, it reveals. And what it reveals can transform you if you are brave enough to keep looking. True intelligence begins here, in honesty. The willingness to see your flaws without fear, your ego without defense, your pain without denial. Because the person who can face themselves completely no longer hides behind arrogance. They don't need to. The fog, the shadow, the mirror, they all lead to one truth. Only the aware can grow. But awareness alone is not enough. We must learn the art of humility, the power of humility. In a world that rewards loudness, humility can look like weakness. But look closer. Humility is not bending down. It's standing tall without needing to be seen. It is the quiet strength of someone who doesn't shout, "I know," but calmly says, "I'm learning." The truly intelligent person doesn't collect knowledge like trophies. They collect questions, and each one makes them wiser. Arrogance closes the door to growth. It whispers, "You're already there." Humility opens it again, saying, "There's still more to see." Pride builds walls around the mind, but humility builds windows. Through those windows, new ideas enter like sunlight. The difference between arrogance and humility isn't power, it's awareness. Arrogance says, "I am the mountain." Humility says, "I am still climbing." Think about learning English. A proud learner tries to memorize every word, afraid of mistakes. They speak quickly, wanting to sound perfect. But a humble learner? They pause, they ask why. They laugh at their errors and keep going. Their progress may look slow, but it runs deep. They are not chasing applause, they are building understanding. A wise learner is not one who knows every word, but one who keeps asking why. Humility changes how we listen. When you are humble, you don't listen to reply. You listen to understand. You no longer see conversation as a competition, but as cooperation. You begin to realize that every person you meet knows something you don't. That realization turns strangers into teachers and mistakes into lessons. Humility transforms the world into a classroom. Many people confuse humility with low self-esteem. They think being humble means thinking less of yourself. But real humility is thinking of yourself honestly, not less. It's knowing your strengths without pride and your weaknesses without shame. It's the balance between confidence and curiosity, between I can and I still can learn. When you walk this middle path, your mind stays open, alert, alive. Psychology shows that humility improves learning because it reduces ego resistance. When you're not busy defending what you already know, your brain becomes free to absorb new things. Imagine pouring clear water into a glass filled with muddy water. The clean water cannot stay pure, but if you first empty the glass, the water flows in fresh and bright. Humility is that emptying, a clearing of pride so wisdom can enter. Even great thinkers lived this truth. Socrates, one of the wisest men in history, said, "I know that I know nothing." He wasn't pretending to be ignorant. He was expressing freedom. The freedom of someone who never stops exploring. The moment you accept that you don't know everything, you stop being afraid of learning. And that is where confidence becomes real, not the fragile pride of pretending, but the calm power of growing. Humility also softens the heart. When you admit your own imperfections, you stop judging others so harshly. You see that everyone, including you, is learning at their own pace. That kindness toward others is the mark of true intelligence, because wisdom without compassion is empty. It's knowledge without soul. In this noisy world, humility is quiet rebellion. It refuses to perform. It doesn't need to prove its worth online or in a crowd. It knows that value isn't measured by volume. When you are humble, you stop chasing validation and start seeking truth. You stop needing to be right and start wanting to be better. So next time you catch yourself saying, "I already know," pause. Ask instead, "What can I still learn?" That question opens a door every time. Through it, you will discover not only more knowledge but also more peace, because a humble mind is a peaceful mind. It doesn't fight to win, it grows to understand. When humility grows, wisdom begins to take root. Learning to learn again. There's something magical about being a beginner. It's the moment when curiosity is stronger than pride, when mistakes don't hurt, they teach. But as we grow older, we lose that courage. We start to fear looking foolish, so we pretend to already know. Yet deep inside, a quiet truth remains. We can only grow when we're willing to start again. Think back to when you first learned your native language. You didn't care about grammar or perfection. You listened, you copied, you laughed, you tried again. That natural curiosity made learning effortless. But somewhere along the way, we traded curiosity for comparison. We began to measure ourselves against others, forgetting that every expert was once a beginner too. To learn again means to return to that childlike openness. It means saying, "I don't know yet, but I'm ready to find out." When you let go of needing to be right, the mind becomes light, playful, and alive. Every new idea feels like a small adventure, a path waiting to be explored. The Japanese have a beautiful word for this, shoshin, the beginner's mind. It means approaching every moment with freshness, even the familiar ones. A beginner doesn't expect. They discover. They don't judge. They observe. That attitude keeps learning joyful, even when it's slow. Because progress isn't measured by how much you know, but by how deeply you engage. In English learning, and in life, the beginner's mind is your greatest strength. You don't need perfect grammar to express a real thought. You don't need big words to share big truths. You just need curiosity, the willingness to explore, to fail, to try again. Every mistake is not proof of weakness, but evidence of courage. Imagine a musician who stops practicing because they're afraid of playing a wrong note. Their silence becomes their prison. But the humble learner keeps playing, keeps missing, keeps laughing, and slowly music returns. Life is the same. To learn again, you must give yourself permission to be imperfect. Many people quit learning because they expect speed instead of depth. They want results without patience. But the mind blooms slowly, like a tree in spring. You cannot rush wisdom any more than you can rush sunrise. You can only show up, water the seed, and trust the process. So, start small. Read one page, learn one new word, ask one more question. Growth doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from consistent curiosity. And every time you choose curiosity over fear, your brain rewires itself for learning. You become more open, more flexible, more alive. This is how we reclaim our power, not by pretending to know, but by daring to begin. The wisest people are not the ones who finish learning. They are the ones who never stop. Now that you've unlearned false confidence, let's rebuild true understanding. The journey from knowing to understanding. There is a great difference between knowing and understanding. Knowing fills the mind. Understanding fills the soul. Knowing collects facts. Understanding connects them. One builds memory, the other builds meaning. And yet, in our world, many stop at knowing because it feels safe, it feels fast, it feels enough. But real intelligence lives beyond that, in the quiet bridge between knowledge and wisdom. Think of a student who memorizes a poem word for word. They can recite it perfectly, but their eyes remain empty. They know the words, but they don't feel them. Then, one day, the same student experiences heartbreak or hope or loss. And suddenly, that same poem touches them deeply. The words haven't changed, but the heart has. That moment is understanding, when information becomes alive within you. The same truth appears everywhere. Scientists who changed the world, Einstein, Curie, Newton, were not worshippers of facts. They were lovers of mystery. Einstein once said, "The important thing is not to stop questioning." He didn't chase answers for pride, but for wonder. He looked at the universe with the eyes of a child, never assuming he had seen it all. Real genius is humble enough to keep asking why. Artists know this too. A painter may know every color, every technique, every rule, but if they can't see the emotion behind a sunset, their work stays lifeless. An artist who understands paints not just what they see, but what they feel. They don't just copy reality, they translate it into meaning. The same is true for language, for science, for love. The heart gives life to what the mind learns. Philosophers through the ages have warned us about this gap between knowledge and wisdom. Socrates said that the wisest person is the one who knows how little they know. Confucius taught that learning without reflection is wasted effort. And the Buddha reminded his followers that words about truth are not truth itself. To know the path is not the same as to walk it. In today's world, we often confuse intellect with insight. Intellect shines quickly. It wins arguments, collects degrees, attracts attention. But insight moves slowly. It grows in silence, in listening, in patience. Intellect builds opinions. Insight builds understanding. The mind that truly understands sees connections where others see separation. It notices patterns between thoughts, between people, between life and meaning itself. When you move from knowing to understanding, you start to see how everything connects. A simple story reveals a universal lesson. A single English word opens a window into human emotion. A mistake in speaking becomes a mirror for patience. Learning becomes more than study. It becomes a way of seeing the world. This shift changes how you experience everything. You stop asking, "What can I get from this?" and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" You stop needing to prove that you're right. and start wanting to grow deeper roots of truth. You realize that real learning is not about collecting knowledge, but about transforming character. Think of wisdom as a tree. Knowledge is the leaves, many, visible, changing with the seasons. Understanding is the roots, invisible, quiet, holding everything together. Without roots, the tree falls at the first storm. Without understanding, knowledge collapses under pressure. That's why the smartest person in the room isn't the one who speaks first. It's the one who listens, connects, and reflects. Understanding is also emotional intelligence, the ability to feel truth, not just think it. When someone speaks in pain, knowledge might give you advice, but understanding gives you empathy. When life challenges you, knowledge says, "Why me?" Understanding says, "What is this teaching me?" The mind that understands doesn't react. It responds. It learns, adapts, and finds meaning even in difficulty. Every great thinker, every lifelong learner, carries this humility, the awareness that learning never ends. Understanding is not a destination, it's a practice. The moment you believe you've mastered life is the moment life humbles you again. But if you stay open, every experience, joy or sorrow, becomes another teacher. So let us walk this path not as collectors of facts, but as seekers of meaning. Let us listen deeply, think slowly, and feel fully. Because wisdom isn't built by what we know, but by what we become through what we know. And yet, there's one final test: how you use what you know. Wisdom in action. Wisdom means nothing if it never leaves the mind. It must move into how we speak, how we listen, how we live. Knowledge is like a seed, but wisdom is the act of planting it. Every word you use, every choice you make, is a chance to live what you've learned. Start with how you listen. Most people listen only to reply. They wait for their turn to speak, not for their chance to understand. But true listening is silent respect. When you listen fully to a friend, a teacher, even to your own thoughts, you create space for truth to enter. Listening is one of the purest forms of wisdom because it means you value understanding more than being right. In your studies, wisdom appears as patience. Learning English or any skill is not about racing to the finish line. It's about steady, honest progress. You don't become fluent by memorizing. You grow fluent by staying curious. Some days, you'll forget words you thought you knew. Some lessons will feel slow or confusing. But wisdom reminds you that growth is not always visible. It often happens quietly, below the surface, like roots forming before the tree appears. Wisdom also changes how you communicate. You stop using words to impress and start using them to express. You speak with kindness instead of competition. You ask more questions. You pause before reacting. You realize that language is not just grammar, it's connection. Every sentence you build with awareness strengthens not just your English, but your empathy. In relationships, wisdom becomes compassion. You stop trying to win arguments and start trying to understand hearts. You recognize that everyone is carrying unseen burdens, and sometimes silence is the greatest kindness. Wisdom helps you choose your battles, your tone, your timing. It teaches that peace is more powerful than pride. The wise person lives simply. They don't need to prove their intelligence because their calmness speaks louder than words. They don't seek control, they seek clarity. They don't chase attention, they give it freely. And in doing so, they turn knowledge into action, not through big gestures, but through consistent care. So how can you practice wisdom each day? Begin small. Before you speak, ask, is it true? Is it kind? Is it needed? Before you judge, ask, do I know the full story? Before you quit, ask, what might this be teaching me? These simple questions train the mind to think deeply, not react quickly. When wisdom enters action, even ordinary moments become extraordinary. A quiet morning becomes meditation. A mistake becomes a lesson. A conversation becomes connection. Wisdom doesn't change the world around you. It changes the way you move through it. The circle completes when you realize the smartest people never stop learning. Closing reflection. True intelligence. So here we are, at the end of this journey. You began with confidence, perhaps even a little pride, thinking you already knew what it means to be intelligent. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. You began to see that true wisdom isn't about how much you know, but how deeply you see. You've learned that knowledge fills the mind, but humility fills the heart. And the heart, not the mind, is where understanding truly lives. You're not as smart as you think, and that's the best news of your life. Because the moment you accept that truth, learning becomes infinite. You stop guarding your ego and start opening your eyes. You stop chasing certainty and begin embracing curiosity. The world expands, not because it changes, but because you do. The humble learner sees meaning in every corner, in a conversation, in a mistake, in the silence between words. True intelligence is quiet. It doesn't need applause. It listens more than it speaks, asks more than it answers. It is the courage to say, I don't know yet. It is the peace of knowing that not knowing is not failure. It's the beginning of discovery. The smartest people you'll ever meet are not those who talk the most, but those who never stop learning, never stop wondering, never stop growing. Think about your English learning journey. Every new word opens a doorway. Every sentence connects you to new hearts, new minds, new cultures. You don't just learn a language. You learn to see the world through different eyes. Every time you say, teach me, you expand your universe a little more. That's what real intelligence feels like. Expansion, not competition. Be kind to yourself on this path. You will forget. You will fail. You will misunderstand. But those moments are not barriers. They are bridges. They are the exact places where wisdom is born. Remember, mistakes are not signs of stupidity. They are signs of courage. Every learner who keeps going, even when it's hard, walks closer to mastery than the one who never dares to begin. So as this story ends, let humility be your guide. Let curiosity be your teacher. Let learning be your lifelong companion. Because intelligence is not a destination. It's a dance between knowing and unknowing, between pride and openness, between the mind and the heart. And when you walk through life with that balance, you'll find something rare, peace through openness, the peace of a mind that no longer needs to prove itself, only to grow. The circle completes when you realize you're not as smart as you think, and that's exactly why you can become wiser than you ever imagined.